This is Niver, and this is Niverland. I've got a smile on my face. Zoe François with us today on this episode, and she's the one that put the smile on my face. It was on my face, honestly, before I got here today. But then a person like that, Zoe François, walks in the door, and the energy enters before her, and she's just a bright, shiny light. And beyond that, so talented, author of many books, Emmy nominated, just came out with Zoe Bakes Cookies. All this on Niverland. It's a great conversation, and she's amazing. Hey, we couldn't do this show without our sponsors. It's super vital to the existence of Niverland. Minnesota Ice, Crybaby Craig's, 36 Lynn Refuel Station in Minneapolis, and Land O'Lakes. Again, thanks for listening to our promotional stuff. This is how we get to exist here. Thanks so much for joining us at Niverland. I was talking about you just briefly with Matt before you got here, and I'm like, Zoe? And he's like, no. Well, of her, I've never met her. And I'm like, just wait. Just you wait.
Is he making this up?
No, I'm not making this up. And then, because the expression I wanted to say that I didn't say was, when you walk into a place, you kind of whoosh into it. Don't you?
That's awesome. Well, don't I? I don't know. I've never watched myself walk into a place.
It's not like a physical whoosh. It's the energy whoosh.
Oh, that's
right?
awesome.
And
I think you maybe draw that out in people.
Perhaps.
Yeah, I think
because
you do.
my body sucks it in whether I want to or not. Everybody else's energy or whatever. Like I'm constantly, watching if people are enjoying themselves and participating in that pleasure and that energy and their energy.
Absolutely. And that's what makes your restaurants sing the way that they do. Is that energy.
Thanks. Yeah. Thank God I don't have to be there for that to happen. I have so many people that just kind of also feed off of that vibe, and we hire actual people, and they end up having talents, and but when you get to work with people that vibe like that, it's good stuff.
It is good stuff. Yeah.
So you look great. Oh, Matt, I was helping Matt bring some stuff in this morning. Matt Gleam Taramita, he's the producer of the show, and he's very fashion conscious, and he always looks really good. And then sometimes he compliments me. He says, "Hey, Tim, I love this dope outfit."
Yeah. Was today one of them?
No.
Oh.
He got out of the car and he looks at me and he's like, "Oh, did you do something to your hair?"
Well, I can tell you he also did not say anything about my outfit, so...
So I'm like, I know that you're talking about my curly mullet, if that's what you're asking about. This is like La Fontana di Trevi in Rome, bro. This is not
very in.
It's not a Kentucky waterfall. Anyway, Matt, thanks for that. Thanks for making me feel pretty this morning. I'd like to make you feel pretty right now, just so that you know. When I was doing my research for you, and I put the word research very lightly because I am no student. Again, I pick up on what I feel. I'm not a reader. I hate to admit it. I feel like less of a human because I just don't have the focus to do it.
Yeah.
It
provides
I'm
right
me with
there
anxiety.
with you. Yes.
Like you with technology.
Yes. And yeah.
And so books aren't always easy for me to, consume.
Yeah. Yes.
But cookbooks are.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I don't know where I started on this, but anyway, we have Zoe François with us. Zoe François has written a lot of books. This one, which I'm going to have you sign for me if you don't mind it, or Zoe Bakes Cookies, is a bestseller.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Wow. Yeah, that was a trip and a half. This is my 10th book.
Yes.
And the first time that I've made the New York Times list.
It's a big deal.
That was a head spinner.
Yeah. Well, you just never know, right? Throughout your career, things happen, and you just happen to be present and available when those opportunities come to you.
Yeah.
And you've really forged your own path.
Yeah. I mean, I guess so. I feel like I feel like my career has been a series of happy accidents and meeting really incredible people who are doing fun things that I get attracted to and glom onto. And I have managed to sort of
Glom hard enough.
Yeah, glom hard enough. And also just sort of like glue together all of the hustles that I've done into a career.
Yeah.
You know? And I, maybe like you, feel like I don't have much of an attention span all the time for, it's ironic that I got into writing cookbooks because I don't tend to read as much as I would like to. And writing was really intimidating to me. And so the fact that I became a writer, I actually, okay, this is like maybe TMI, but I actually went to a therapy
Please bring it
session.
up. Let's go. Oh.
We're going straight into therapy.
Good.
And my therapist, because I was a little bit lost, like I didn't know what I wanted to be doing. And I was, hadn't quite figured out what I was or who I was or what I was meant to be doing. And she said, write down 20 things that you want, just like off the top of your head, 20 things that you're interested in or that scare you. Two very different ways of looking at things. And I wrote down a bunch of things, one of which was writing. I want to get better at writing. I want to get better at photography. I want to, there were many, many things on the list. I think it was within the year that I got my first book contract. And I sort of manifested all of my fear about writing, about expressing myself in that way. And that is one of the things that has been like a guide to me almost, is like doing things I'm a little bit afraid of. And I feel like those are the things that intimidate me are the things that are most interesting and most challenging.
Hell yeah.
And I go for those things.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly afraid because I'm constantly doing things that terrify me.
This is a weird mirror because you look great in this mirror, but I am just like totally picking up on this. Like I didn't really know that we had kind of this similarity.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, isn't it?
I wonder if it's
evolving,
like
though.
a creative person's mentality,
Sure.
almost, maybe.
Sure.
But that really drives me because I'm afraid of letting that fear stop me from doing things. So I'm constantly running into it. And this book ended up scaring me more than any of the others, which is so weird because cookies is really where I started. So I thought this was going to be the easy one. And it turned into more of a memoir.
Sure.
It's
It
very
did. It's lovely.
reflective of me and my journey in a way that I did not see coming.
Yeah. Again, looking back, through your life, what I could find online or whatever, it seems like this was really the root of everything.
Yeah.
And I don't want to lose the train of thought where you were saying, like, you kind of found yourself, you had a therapy session, you're like, hey, you can realize how brave you are and who you are, but then you still have to exert on that.
Yeah.
You still have to exert on it and practice it so that it becomes more of you, because it doesn't just happen. It's not like a switch flips and you're all of a sudden emotionally mature and understanding what the path is. But when you take on the challenges, when you take them head on, and that's what drives you, you don't really know the result either, because there's risk involved, or there's like, when you expose yourself a little bit or become vulnerable to comment or whatever, it's really hard.
Yeah.
Christine, my wife, is, kind of transformed over the last couple of years. We've been together for 30.
Yeah.
And, she she exerted on our life for a long time, and now she's exerting on her own in that process, that switch, and having her own career instead of what she did to help me along or whatever, and it's just like her whole world blew up.
Yeah.
And I think it's an important lesson as a human that you continue to push. If that's what you want to do, continue to push, because you don't have to be what you think you are now forever. And then finding focus on maybe a similar personality type, you and I, maybe finding that focus is really hard, but it comes with emotion. It comes with all this other stuff that is important for people to feel. There's emotion in this book. This book is your life.
Yeah, it sure is.
I didn't have to look too far beyond this book to find, something else on Google about you. Really foundational.
Yeah, yeah.
I need to know about this communal living situation. Situation.
It was a situation. Yes.
So this was your dad's land.
Yep. Yes, my grandfather passed away, left my dad some money, and this is what he did with it, is he bought some uninhabitable land in what's called the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont. Brutal climate. At the time, dirt roads, barely a way in or out of this land. So he bought the land with his sister and invited anybody who would come to be there. And I would say there was probably 24 foundational folks who really built the place up. And when I say built the place up, set up tents and teepees, and that's how we lived for a bit. And then they built a structure, and then of course the geodesic dome had to come, and it was like every cliche that you can think of for a commune happened there. Yeah. But at the time, it was revolutionary.
Absolutely.
And so that's, that was his dream. We lived off the land.
It was his dream. Here's your life, and I'm living in Dad's dream. And,
Well, I was very young.
Yeah.
It was more my mom who was dragged into my dad's dream.
Heard. Yeah.
Yeah. So, by the end of that marriage, they were in separate teepees, and then she was hightailed it out of there.
Separate teepees.
Yep. So I would go from one to the other.
Hey.
Yeah.
So this was young, and they weren't together.
Yeah, they separated when I was 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she left the commune, and he stayed. And then I did end up living with him again at 7, and we lived communally in communes, on that one in Vermont, in Pennsylvania, eventually a cult in California. I mean, this was my existence. Partly, I feel like it was my dad's calling to sort of, he's always been sort of a macro thinker, like he thinks about the world and not so much the individual.
Yeah.
And so this lifestyle made a lot of sense to him, and he was seeking for something, I think still is. Also communal daycare, communal childcare, I should say. He was 20.
You're a public school kid, though?
Yeah. Well, up until high school. But my parents had me when they were 20. And so raising a child with a bunch of people was probably pretty advantageous.
You don't know what's going to happen, right? But you're like trusting these folks.
Yeah.
And then you're working together.
Yeah.
And then you're moving around.
Well, I went to 16 schools before I graduated from, I guess 18 by the time I graduated from college.
Yeah. You spoke to the fact that moving helped, say, build your social, constructed your how do I say this? Made you who you are, made you charming, made you, the availability to people
Yeah, well,
and how
I
they see
think,
you and that energy, right?
okay, so you could put it that way, or you could say that I learned how to reinvent myself for different situations.
Uh-huh.
I think it was somewhat,
Chameleon-like.
yeah, because I had to go from living in a very, very rural community in Vermont to downtown Philadelphia to downtown San Francisco,
Wow.
then to Westport and Fairfield, Connecticut. Very different demographics for all of those things. By the time my parents realized that moving 16 times was not giving me the education that I probably needed, I ended up in boarding school, which was then another, a set of a different demographic, a different, set of circumstances. Structure for the first time. Oh my
point.
God, exactly.
Did you welcome it?
It was total chaos.
The structure was total chaos.
No. My up until that point, it was complete and utter chaos. And I was a very almost too mature. Like I was taking care of these two wild parents. And the boarding school was total structure, and I loved it because it was the first time I'd ever had boundaries around anything. It was a little bit scary, like trying to figure that out, and also learning how to learn, because people figured out I was smart, but I had no foundation for how to study, how to do any of these things. So I was pretending up until that point, and adapting as well as I could.
Yeah, at school.
Yeah. And dyslexic on top of all of it, which makes the writing of the book very interesting as well.
Wow.
And dyslexic in a era where we didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You used to get asked like, what's your problem, kids?
Yeah.
I used to get that too.
The
like,
focus.
Just
and
different stuff. Yeah. My folks made me run around the house.
Yeah.
And with my energy, they're like, please go outside. You have to run around the house 10
Well,
times.
when you said that you pace before things, I do that. And even like if I'm doing an interview at home, I'm walking the whole time.
Yeah.
I rarely sit down, which I think is what made the kitchen environment natural for me, because I never sit. I'm always walking, standing, doing in motion.
I don't sit well. I swear to God. Like, I just don't.
Yeah.
I can't.
No. Yeah. Constant
Let's go,
moving.
man. And it's funny that the motion helps provide me that center sometimes. Like, like you just kind of like, you get to, in your brain at least, just kind of filter a little bit. Quiet's hard too, though. I'm kind of an introvert outside, not with my wife or whatever, but I kind of like get in my little shell and look around a little bit. Like, that was a lot. That was a lot of people, a lot of steps, like so much care.
Yeah.
But then you make a book that's really like the essence of this is how people take care of you.
Yeah.
How you were raised, how you take care of the memories, the food memories.
Yeah. I feel like that's something that's coming to me later. Like I really pushed away from sort of the history and the sentimentality of, of looking back into my past. And I think something changed. And I think it's becoming a parent, but that wasn't even really it. I think it's more an age thing, that all of a sudden, and it might have even hit me during this book, that these stories that came out through writing this, that I discovered, that I had no idea about, hit me so intensely and powerfully. And I realized that that they're not just stories, they're like my DNA.
Yeah.
And they are who I am and what I am. Even though I didn't know these stories existed, they resonated so deeply with me that I was a changed person. I actually had to ask for an extra year to write this one because it hit me so hard, and I knew that it couldn't be the book that I originally planned to write, that it was a changed thing. I
wow.
was a changed person, and the book had to be that. So I know it's a book about cookies, and the cookies are great, and they're like all the cookies that I love, but it was so much more than that for me.
Oh, I love that.
Really,
Shit, though, when you start uncovering stuff, you're like, oh no, here we go again, you know?
Right.
You know, this is the Neal family, or this is the Berkowitz family, right? And the differences and all the things that they brought to you, trained you for, how they showed you love, you know, whatever that was. And you had to like go through all of that again and kind of process it.
And it wasn't, you know, it was the people that actually raised me and showed me love, but it was also generations before that, of especially women who I'd never even met, cool. That their stories and their happens to be baking, that their baking and recipes and life journey hit me. And I realized that some of what I'm doing is, maybe it's just human, maybe all families have stories like this, but it really hit me that I am of these people, that I came from these stories.
Yeah. Everybody has a story, but it's different to realize it and to pour over it and kind of then recognize.
But also like the resilience and the, you know, sort of what they, in some cases, what they survived, you know? Yeah. So yeah, it was a fascinating journey. And also keeping it in the context of wanting to teach people how to bake, you know, and it wasn't just about me.
No, but it's all right. If it was just about you, that'd be fine too.
That's another book.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Yeah, there are many stories from the commune and that whole thing that probably need to be told eventually.
Oh, I mean, I find that you were at freaking Woodstock, for heaven's sake.
Yeah, I was at Woodstock. That's a claim to fame. I was too. I was too. So.
Oh my God.
But I still claim it, even though I have no
idea what was
memory.
going on around you at that time. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I don't think anybody did. Yeah. I was not convinced for a very long time that I went home with my birth parents. Like, there was just such chaos. I could have gone home with anyone.
But what a different time. I wonder it too, what that embedded in you, you know, because you're at that age, you are just soaking up everything environmentally, right? It's all about that. And all the love is really the only, is the main thing, you know, love is the main thing. But certainly those situations, even before you knew it, have helped form you. It's cool.
Yeah. I think that I was probably never destined for an office job, because my mom owned a dance studio. My dad, you know, started these communes. I never saw anybody in an office setting until, you know, maybe I was a preteen. I didn't even realize those were jobs, like they existed. Of course, when I went to high school and boarding school, that's what I wanted. You know, because it was like structure and it seemed so normal, you know, and I just craved normal. So. Do
you still crave normal?
No. Oh, no.
This is the other side.
Yeah, no, I've come around. One, I'm not of that. It's not natural to me. So I tried to force myself into it for a long time. And I never fit, so I always felt like an outsider anyway. And now I see myself sort of going back to, my husband and I are looking at land and, you know, growing fruit trees and, you know, and all I'm thinking is, oh my God, I'm like going back to the whole commune days and I want to have bees. And so
This is what you want.
This is what I want. You know, I think I'm going, you know, reverting back to
full circle, right?
Full circle.
It's not directly back. There is so much in the middle.
Yeah.
There's so much in the middle of
Yeah,
all that work, all
absolutely.
that development.
Yeah.
Looking at your book, and you referenced just lightly, for me, the way that you talk through cooking and look at these cookies and at this temperature, and here's what you do with this, and if you add the butter at the right time and it's the right temperature, and then, you know, if you can smack the cookies, you know, like all these little intricacies going into the making of cookies, like what is
Yeah.
your desired outcome?
Yeah.
It's like people's eggs at brunch. They're like, oh, I want them like this. I want them vulcanized.
Yes.
I want a soft poach. I want it over hard. But you kind of put it in context so that people can look at the cookie and be
Yeah.
like, that's the cookie I want.
That's right.
And here's my method to get there.
Yeah.
And that was such a cool part of this book because I understood things I would not have ever really thought of, you know?
Yeah.
You put vinegar in this to cut some of that sweetness back a little bit. We made the brownies, the coconut macaroon brownies, Passover brownies this week.
Yeah.
Christy
Oh, you
did.
did?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
That was Christy did. I did.
Yeah.
'Cause she's the baker.
Yeah.
But
Good.
dope.
Oh,
Dope. And there were people, you know,
yay.
alongside that warm crumb cake and all this other stuff. It
Yeah.
was just fun.
Yeah.
But those methods and the way that you talk about that stuff is definitely vital for folks to see. And you put it in pictures so a dude like me can even understand that. No, I'm serious.
Yeah.
Like it really is
the
like
visuals are huge.
huge.
I am such a visual learner. So for me, I always knew. I mean, a cookbook without pictures, it's a little old fashioned at this point to have a cookbook without pictures. But I think people need to know what they're striving
This is how we learn
toward.
now. This is how we learn
It's
now,
how
too.
we learn.
It's so pretty.
Yeah.
The book is so pretty
Thank
too.
you. Thank you.
So, interesting. Like I showed the book to the general manager at Moochie's, and she's like, "Oh, snickerdoodles," and she looked through the recipe, and she's like, "There's no sour cream in the snickerdoodles," and I'm like, "I'm sorry, I don't know anything about this," and she's like, "Yeah, like at our house, it's like you put sour cream in the snickerdoodles, huh? Right? Like." If it's not a snickerdoodle without in that home, it's not a snickerdoodle without
Yes.
sour cream.
Right.
And so you kind of approach that too and help people kind of decipher what you really, really want and also
Yeah.
make a little beautiful snack. I just thought it was funny. I'm like, oh, I have to tell Zoe that.
Yeah.
Like, no, you know, but people have their own personal
Oh,
ways.
absolutely. And I think, okay, so for me, one of the most fun things to write in the book is the Baking Academy.
Yes.
And that's the front of the book. And it's like where all the geeky, food science and,
Products and-
yeah, just some of the information that can help you through a recipe. And it can help you through my recipes, but even more fun than that is helping people with recipes that they've gotten from their family.
Sure, that already exists to them. And
That
they're taking the tip
exist
on.
to them, but don't make sense necessarily. Because like I have my grandmother's recipe box, and she has the craziest instructions in there. A handful of flour. Like what in the world does that mean? How big were her hands? Like what kind of flour? Like, it's just, so there's a lot of these recipes that we remember, but that we can't recreate. And so part of that Baking Academy and part of what you were talking about is wanting to help people understand baking, because I think more than cooking even, people are intimidated by it. And they don't know how to play in baking.
Yeah.
They know how to play in cooking. Like you add a little more of this or you spice it up with that. But they're scared to do that with baking. So I wanted to put the information somewhere so that I feel like a little bit of information gives you a lot more room to play and experiment. And
It's helpful. It's just freaking helpful.
it's helpful. And I think that's the exciting thing for me now is teaching, is getting other people to do it. It's like it used to be working in restaurant kitchens and creating and feeding people. And now it's watching other people create something and feed people. And I also don't feel like my books are the end all. It's like the person that you showed this to and their family recipe is one way.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of cooking, baking, creating, is all of the ways every single family has a different way
Yes.
of baking a recipe or cooking a pasta or, whatever
For
it
me,
is.
it's sauce.
Yeah.
I used to go to Steve Youngberg's grandma's house. She had an Italian name. I'm forgetting the name. Bianchi, I think. Anyway, but we'd go down there to her house for sauce.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like Ma's lasagna is like the best to me because
Yeah.
that's what I was kind of conditioned.
Yeah.
But I go to somebody else's house, I'm going to eat the lasagna and I'm going to love it. And
Love
I'm going
it.
to, my brother-in-law's mom makes pork rib sauce. It's never like we do it like a stew ground meat. It's always pork ribs.
Yeah.
And it's always smooth.
Yeah.
And and that's kind of the beauty because family to family, I mean, you just gotta taste, and in somebody else's expression. I love the idea of sour cream and a snickerdoodle.
I do too.
But it's not.
Now I'm obsessed with it.
It's a familial thing that's important to them.
Yeah.
That's exactly the point.
Yes,
That's exactly
I
the
love
point.
it. I love
And I
it.
feel like you mentioned a lot. Well, you didn't mention a lot, but I read it and I really felt it. It was like I've asked for my mom's Rolodex of
Yeah.
recipes. It's a literal Rolodex,
Yeah.
and there's shit,
Wow.
like
Yeah.
Betty Crocker book
Oh
pages.
God, right.
And I just cannot wait. It's all in her
Yes.
writing.
Yes.
Better Homes and Gardens this, Betty Crocker
Yes,
this.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
that I'm so glad she wrote it down. I may need some help translating, right? And
Yep.
I understand that's where you're coming from. But just the importance of kind of taking what is old,
Yeah.
but also it's a story and this is how they did it and bringing that forward and having those stained cards and
Yeah.
translating. This
Yeah.
is a whole bunch of time. It's a time capsule. These recipes are time capsules.
Well, the other thing about my grandmother's recipes is that this was their social media, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Because they would write letters back and forth. It was her sister and her friends from her hometown in Michigan, and they would send each other recipes. And so the recipes were part of it, but it was also family gossip and quite a bit of trash talk. And you know what I mean? It was like you're saying, it was like all the stories, not just related to the recipe, like their whole life.
Yeah.
And they were real letter writers. And it's so cool to have that. One of the recipes, I can't even remember which one it was, had like my grandmother's true feelings about my uncle's girlfriend at the time. Not a fan.
I love that.
But yeah,
I
it
love
was
that.
so awesome. So I can't remember the recipe, but I totally remember all of the shit
the
talk
dish.
that went on. It was hilarious.
Grandma.
Yeah. And it was, a lot of those recipes are straight out of Betty Crocker. And a lot of oleo and
If you know what oleo is.
yeah, it's, margarine-y,
Yes.
and a
to
lot
buy
of
it.
stuff we just don't use today. Like
Yeah.
the palette of bakers and consumers is just so different today than it was in the 50s. Thankfully.
Fully expanded. But
Yeah.
I think you touched on, the teaching aspect and basically from those moments of passing this on, we've seen in the last few years too, because we were, sequestered a bit to our homes,
Yeah.
how people have really do-it-yourselfing everything.
Oh God,
And
it's
so your angle to
amazing.
me is not that it's an angle so much as what you really want to do, but it's obviously more people are interested in creating for themselves. They have that availability. They've practiced it a little bit more. They're finding their comfort level. One of my greatest friends is a sourdough person. And they get up in the morning and they make a loaf of sourdough, not every day, but and when they roll out, and so this is things that they're developing. And they have an old starter that they got and they dehydrated, where did that starter come from? It's 200 years old or whatever.
Yeah.
This is really cool stuff.
And
There's
this
history attached.
was a product of the pandemic.
Yeah.
This just would not have happened if people weren't forced to be at home, sort of slow slow it down. People took on projects that they just never would have before. And like, if there's a silver lining of that just awful experience, this is it.
Yeah.
I mean, people dove in. I mean, I wrote 8 books on 5-minute a day bread. And we had such a challenge convincing people that they could bake a loaf of bread in 5 minutes, because that seemed intimidating to them. They didn't want to take the time. They were intimidated by yeast. And so to have an entire country, if not world, embracing the art and craft of sourdough is amazing to me, having just had to convince people to bake a single loaf of bread.
Yeah.
And so, and that translated into macarons, and it translated into, people doing a croquembouche. People are just willing to take on these projects that they never were before, and it's amazing.
Yeah. And the time that people kind of took back and they used to positively, say, affect the moment, the way a loaf of bread feels in the oven, when it smells and all those things. And it's just, it's kind of the root of a home is the kitchen, like the focus there. And when that thing's cooking, I love that people are, doing more themselves. In my industry, I want to be able to do the cooking. But I really dig it. And as hobbies, people have ended up becoming like professionals at this shit. And they're just like, oh my God, I never knew. And that is electric. That is like sharing like some basic things, right? That every, like things that you eat every day, bread. Yeah. And now you know how to do it. Yeah. And now that's out of the way. Yeah. Like we got more. We got more bread. Yeah. It's really cool. You went to the CIA. I didn't realize that. Is that where you fell in love with the science of baking? Or
I went there because of the science of baking. So I had been working here at D'Amico and basically apprenticing, but I wanted things to be moving along a little bit faster. Like I knew I wanted to be creating at a level that I wasn't. At D'Amico, I love that experience because there's nothing like scooping 1,500 muffins in a day to really give you proficiency and efficiency and mastering a craft of scooping 1,500 muffins. But I wanted to be a little more, I wanted the creative side of it that I wasn't getting. And it was somewhat because I didn't understand how things were going. I could follow a recipe, but I couldn't create a recipe at the time. And so I went to the CIA because I needed that piece. Like I felt like creatively I kind of knew, but I couldn't get consistent results. And that's exactly what I got.
Yeah, again, like building on those foundations that that only schooling can give you. I almost think for baking it would be more important to have that than for savory. I don't know. Maybe that's a misconception.
I think that again, to go back to the beginning of our conversation when I said I didn't have a great attention span and also like patience, maybe. Because I think apprenticing is a perfectly legit way to learn these things as long as you're learning from someone who, has enough information to provide you the proper techniques and all of that. I think it's fantastic. For me, culinary school was just a much more efficient way of doing it. It was like, boom, bam, here it is. What you don't get in culinary school is repetition. So you'll do 1,000 recipes or 1,000 techniques a few times, but you won't get that 1,500 times of doing the same thing until it's muscle memory. And so the combination of those two things, I think, I was able to sort of accelerate. And then also just going for it. just doing it and being willing to sort of learn and fail and get up and try it again.
Yeah. You said failure is where the learning happens.
It absolutely. And I feel like that it's one of the things that I've noticed, like now that there is social media and now that I'm like, because the first few books, like maybe first 5 books, I wasn't really in touch with the people who were baking from them. And now that I put something out there, that day I will get feedback from people on social media. It's like an immediate conversation. And I love it because I know how people are using the book. I know, so I feel like it's helped me write better because I know how people are consuming it. I know how people are using my books.
Cool.
Yeah.
Feedback is so important.
Feedback is so important.
It's so important.
Yeah.
We get it sometimes, in the restaurant you get feedback or you can just see it on their faces, but it's a compass, man. It kind of shows you where to go,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think especially with baking, because it has to be written in such a way that it's informative, but also encouraging because, like I said, I think baking more than anything else is intimidating. And so it also has to be, for me, this craft is my joy. I love doing it. I do it all the time, even if I'm not writing or creating something, I'm constantly doing it. And I want to impart that piece of this too, that it is so much fun. It's so much joy for me. It gives me so much pleasure. Part of, I think you probably feel this too, is watching someone enjoy the food that you have created. There's almost no better high than that.
It's really true. It's also a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it is. It is a lot.
Ends up having an expectation attached.
And I feel like that, I'm getting better at that. You know what I mean? I feel like the whole ego piece of this and the whole anxiety of that, I think that's the blessing of being 56 years old. Is like, I can take that in stride now that it's okay if some people love it and some people don't.
Yeah.
I can't please everybody. You know what I mean? And I think I used to try. That was a goal of mine, was that everybody had to love it. And I think raising 2 kids probably cured me of knowing that I can satisfy everybody's needs all the time.
Right. I feel that really deeply. I feel that really deeply. I love taking care of people. I love it. I think also, you close a place or somebody leaves dissatisfied or whatever, you really have to risk being disliked to do something that maybe propels you in a direction, that you wouldn't have, wanted to go before. I'm not really good at being disliked.
Yeah.
So, I just, my goal is just to keep everybody freaking happy.
Yeah.
I maybe not gotten through that yet, do I keep myself happy? Yeah, I really do. I find joy in what I do too.
Yeah.
I really do.
But I feel like that's part of this, is that it makes me so happy that I, in turn, I think make other people happy in that. Mm-hmm. I feel like they feel it. And so I think that that's part of the equation, is keeping ourselves happy and true to what we love to do.
Yeah.
And that there's no way of avoiding. I think that's infectious.
Yeah.
Is that,
It's culture builder where I'm from. That's what, I feel with everybody I work with, honestly. If there's no, and I have worked with my partner for many years, which you have as well. Well, I mean, he helps you a lot, right?
Graham.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And so
he's now my director and camera guy in my
tech.
YouTube.
He does the tech.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, and I love that
Yeah.
you're, that's a hard mix too.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. This is new. This is very new.
Oh, so this is new.
Well, he's always been. So he was a graphic designer and tech, and he's deep in IT. He's always helped me with that stuff, but the creative part of it, because now we're like sort of in it. I think we both wanted to be boss, and that was really hard for us. And now I think we've mellowed out with that, and we're just partners in it.
Christy tells me.
I'm still the boss.
I'm more comfortable when Christy tells me what to do. She's the boss. And or like really available to comment after I do something so that I'm, I can fix it really quickly before anybody else notices. But yeah, working with your partner is a difficult thing, but it's also really rewarding.
And not unlike you, we've been together since I was 19.
Yeah, a long time.
So
man.
this is, we're pushing on 40 years together. And so I've been many, many, many people in front of him. And, I feel, and even you were saying about your wife is like at 50, I decided, my kids were in their late teens. I decided that it was my turn to turn, and I went from co-authoring the bread books to authoring these pastry books, which is really what I wanted to do. And I did the TV show, and I did a bunch of other projects that were passion projects for me. And it's like, I feel like there's never an end time to the new creative things that we're gonna do. Like people think that they're too old or it's too late, or I'm like, no, we're just starting.
That is
like,
not the message.
It's so not the message.
It's
I
so
feel like
not
we're
the message.
just gearing up. We're just getting to the point where one, we know our craft. I've put my 10,000 hours in. Like, that's not the piece that I'm working on. I mean, I always am, but I know that. It's like, how am I going to express that? What new things can I do with it? It's really fun. I feel like this is a very fun, creative time.
No doubt. No doubt. I do too.
Yeah.
I absolutely do too. I don't know what I want to do with my creative time. This has been a real boon for me, just like personally, like inside being able to, express and have really cool freaking people on. And, but I have transitions coming up with the closure of Saint Dinette. I have, a frozen food company that's been okay for 6 years, but it's not bringing me any money, and it's all good. Like I'm really not stressed about any of it so much as I know what I'm not looking at, which is what's next. And I don't really like that question.
Yeah.
Because I've gotten it a lot from people, like the expectation that you might continue to do this forever. And then I think, for me personally, it's kind of like, well, I don't really want to fill space with the absence of dinette because I haven't had one place for a while and I don't know what that feels like. But then the devil on my shoulder is like, Niver, you were freaking made to do this, man. Get back in there, brush off your knees. And get back in that fucking game. You need a restaurant. You need to do the shit. And so like that's where I am. That's where I'm like right now. And I feel like it's like actually very comfortable and the best place I've been in a very long time. And I don't know shit. But like, come on. So I'm putting good vibes out there.
Yeah.
I'm looking at things differently. I have so much love in my heart, just for everything and everyone.
Yeah.
Maybe I already have it.
Yeah.
Maybe I already have it.
Yeah. Or you don't even know, you've never even thought of that next thing.
What it could be.
What it could be.
It's cool. So but if you stop looking.
Yeah, or you stop, it's not even, like you were saying, it's not even I'm looking for it or what's the next thing. It's being open to things that come to you.
In
Like
the
I was
flow.
saying before, it's like meeting people and who's doing cool things, and just being open to saying yes to something that might intimidate you but is super interesting.
I'm also afraid of heights, so I
Yeah,
can't do
so it's
anything with
gonna.
heights.
Well, maybe that's the next thing.
Window
The
washing.
skydiving. I'll watch.
I would just be like, my teeth would be chattering, when we're in the Twin Towers. I'm like standing in the back.
I am
when
the
was a
same
kid,
way.
and then you go up in the Needle in Toronto and there's like a plexiglass floor, and I just could not walk on that thing.
Yeah.
So it won't be a heights job.
Yeah,
that's
there's
for
one in
sure.
Hudson Yards. I did the same
Oh,
thing. I crawled
that's
on
very
it.
creepy
I
up there, like-
crawled on it. I wouldn't even walk over it. I literally got on my hands and knees and crawled over it.
That is instinctually what happens. It's happened to me. You get on your knees. You get it. Yes. And you're like, keep me as close to the foundation as I can. Get me near dirt, please. I always feel relieved. It won't be a heights job. That won't be a heights job.
All right, we'll see.
It won't be. I can promise you that. Like I don't plan on working on that. All right. So you went to the University of Vermont too. I'm trying to get my kid to go to a New England college.
Yeah.
Because I got family out there. It's far enough away that I don't have to deal with them. I can send them to, you're going to Christmas with my folks. That's cool. We're going to go to Mexico this time,
Yeah, it's awesome.
Have fun, son. So you went to the University of Vermont. Did you finish there?
I did. Yep, I did. So I started the cookie company.
From that.
From that, I was an art and English major, dyslexic English major.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Honestly, like doing that.
So I graduated with a BFA from there. But so this is in the 80s. And at the time, we were required in the 4 years, I had to do one math class in 4 years. And I ended up in a business class to fulfill that. And we had to write a fictitious business plan. And that's when I came up with the cookie company. It was Mrs. Fields, it was Famous Amos, that era. And I quit school to open this company. My boyfriend at the time had left to go to Europe with his family, and I took over his apartment kitchen and started Zoe's Cookies. I did end up marrying him. He built me a cart, and I did that business for a semester and a summer, and then ended up going back and graduating. But that was like my first sort of baking
foray.
Right?
And
business. And I did not lose money. I didn't make any money, but I didn't lose money.
That's great in the restaurant world.
And yeah. I feel like a total success.
Breaking even's awesome.
Yeah. But I learned a lot, and it was in me. It had its claws in me. And so even though I was, thought that I was going to go, and I always thought I would go to New York and work in an ad agency. That's where I pictured myself. I spent 1 week in a cubicle and went to culinary school. From there.
I don't want to actually achieve a position. I just want it given to me, the one I want. Thank you, corporate America. This is the job that I've been made for. No, I don't have any of these experiences, but you should have me. Right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
That was the vision. So
that's the vision, right? But it's hard to get there.
Yeah.
And then you sit in the cubicle
Well, and
going,
then I went in the cubicle, and I just realized it just wasn't what I had imagined it to be.
I worked in a home office of a multi-level marketing company right out of college.
Yeah.
Like those scam companies.
Oh,
and I was just paid. I didn't know it was a scam when I was working there. It seemed legit. It seemed legit.
Yeah.
But that was my cubicle job, and I had one of those headphones with the thing here. I'm like, hey, this is Tim Niver, and I'm calling from XXX Services. Yeah, we'd like to renew your subscription today. And I couldn't fucking stand that job, dude. Good thing it was like 75% non-male employees.
Wow.
And so
there was some incentive to get there.
There was a lot of incentive for this 21-year-old to go to the multi-level marketing. It was rumored that the owner of this lived with 7 of the employees.
What?
The male owner lived with 7 of the female employees.
Wow.
Cool.
That is,
it
right.
was a little weird. Yeah, right. I mean,
It's
I
a
don't know
little
what it
weird.
was, but it was like at the time, I was like, boy, this is crazy.
Yeah.
And then I got laid off from that company as it started to fail. So,
Yeah.
so I felt that for the first
Probably
time.
good.
It is good. Because I packed up my 1986 Dodge Charger with the $400 I had in my pocket. And I packed my bags and went home for a weekend.
Yeah.
Worked at this was from Albany, New York.
Oh,
And
okay.
then I went back home
Yeah.
to Western New York, rather Jamestown.
Yeah.
I worked one weekend, Labor Day weekend, at the restaurant I worked in all through high school, and then I took $300. Even after working the weekend, I took $300, my 1986 Dodge Charger, and I drove right to Colorado.
Yeah. Amazing.
And that's what opened my mind to like what nature does for me and
Yeah.
how you need all of that stuff and
Yeah.
taking chances. I love the evolution of you. I love the evolution of what I'm sensing from you, you know, and you even like, you know, moving, and looking at what you want to build
Yeah.
and
it's
what's
in
important to you
upstate
now.
New York, I think.
No shit.
Yeah. Yeah. We've been looking in like the Hudson Valley.
Oh,
Your face
God.
just went.
I mean, it's perfect for you.
I
It's
couldn't
perfect for
tell.
you.
I couldn't read like where this was headed.
It wasn't that shocking so much as I was excited, you know, and it's weird to call that upstate, but that's fine. To me anyway.
Why? What did you call? What is
Anything
that?
above New York is upstate. And New York
Yeah.
City is upstate.
Yeah. Right. It is.
But there's so much more upstate than,
Yeah. Sure.
you know,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I hung out in Poughkeepsie around there, Hyde Park for school. But I also because I grew up somewhat in Connecticut, I grew up going to the Hudson Valley as a kid. So that it has some like, you know, family
my sister
memory
lived by the
stuff.
Tappan Zee and just
Yeah.
all of these kind of wild places there. I lived in Albany,
Yeah.
I've been to Poughkeepsie.
Yeah.
My brother-in-law's from Ravenna, the smallest places in New York. But I love New York. And
Yeah.
I hear you. It is
And I
ups-
now
it
have
is
a
upstate.
son in New York City.
Who's
So
in
I
the
have
city?
one in New York City and one in LA, and I think he may end up in Austin. So anyway, it's like this is a brand new day for us too, because our tethers to this particular place are less than they were. I love this. It's been a creative, just such a creative time for me here in the Twin Cities. But maybe the next adventure is somewhere else.
Sure is.
Yeah.
I mean, it could have been here too, but it
Yeah,
sure
yeah.
is somewhere
It
else.
might be. I don't
just
know.
love it.
I don't have a plan, like you said. What's your plan? I don't
No,
know.
you're captivating your own opportunity. You see
Yeah.
it, you feel it, you sense it, and this is what I'm going to do. And if it felt bad, this wouldn't be the idea. And you're just going to roll it out there to New York,
Yeah.
where I will visit you.
Yes,
'cause
good.
in my own stomping grounds.
Yeah.
Oh man,
I just want a pie stand. I want fruit trees and a pie stand, and you can come and have pie with
so
me.
cool. No, it is. No, it's like it's not.
I should
it's,
say
it's
cookies,
more,
but-
and it's like so simple too, right? You know, and it's just like it's just another step. And I love that you're taking it. I love that the friends around you are taking their steps too.
Yeah,
You know, like
yes.
I know the collective energy of your group of friends here
Yep.
and what it means for you to, to move away from them and
Yeah.
how impactful they've been and how supportive and lovely
Yep.
and just, integrated.
Yeah,
but,
I
but
think-
still, these
yeah.
connections
Yeah.
won't go away.
No, they
and you
won't.
still have to do something for you.
Yes. And I also think that we live in a time that we can stay really connected
Yeah.
in other, physically we get together quite a bit. And I have just the most incredible supportive community here of fascinating, talented, this particular group that we're talking about are women. But
Strong. Women.
very strong,
Yes.
very talented, very powerful women. But no matter where we are, we will be connected and we will gather and do our thing. And dance. And always dance.
Yeah.
That's right.
Zoe, this has been lovely. I just really appreciate the time. And again, what you bring in energy and spirit is inspiring to me. And I love having commonality with you that I didn't know. And
a lot of it.
And I look to adventure with you for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I will be checking in on you and knowing that you'll be pushing it.
Yeah.
And
true for
trust
me
that
too.
trust that I will too. This is a true pleasure.
Yeah.
Zoe
Thank
François,
you so much.
Never Neverland. Thank you.
Thank you.